Hey, what's good, football fans? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to this channel, be sure to subscribe and also hit the thumbs up down below on this video. First off, guys, I do apologize. I know it's been a very long while since I've uploaded. I just have been really busy with work and some other things. But I am back uploading, and as the season gets closer and during the season, I will be uploading more, so just be on the lookout for that. So for today's video, I thought I would give my coaches' rankings for the SEC going into the 2025 season. And if you guys remember, a few months back, I did the coaches for the ACC. I'm moving to the SEC today, and if you guys remember, just to refresh your memory, I'm ranking the coaches. I have them color coded, green, yellow, and red. Now the ones in green, those are obviously safe, and then the coaches that are in yellow are not yet on the hot seat, but they need to start showing some improvement and make some strides. And then the ones in red, those are obviously on the hot seat, and if you don't at least go to a bowl game or make a playoff appearance or something like that, then you will be shown the door at season's end. So let's go ahead and let's get started. And just like I did with the ACC, I'm going to start from the bottom up at number 16. And number 16, I have Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. So last year left a lot to be desired for Mississippi State. They just went 2-10. They went 0-8 in conference play. But I'm going to give Jeff Lebby the benefit of the doubt here, because last year he was Mississippi State's third different coach in 3 years. And so a lot of rebuilding is going to be required for that program and needs a little bit of time. So I'm going to put him at 16, but at the same point, I'm going to put I think Jeff Lebby is safe in terms of his job security. And so already at number 15, we have our first coach in red, and that is Sam Pittman at Arkansas. So Arkansas went 7-6 last year, but Sam Pittman's record there, 30-31. He's been there since 2020. And, you know, I'm honestly surprised that Arkansas decided to bring him back last year. And so, but he is back for another year. So I think you need certainly a bowl game would help, but when you're having just, mediocre seasons, at some point you got to draw the line if you're Arkansas, and especially if you're playing in a tough conference like the SEC. You need to step it up. I think certainly an 8-win or a 9-win season would certainly save his job into the future. So let's go to number 14, and we have another coach in red, and that is Brent Venables at Oklahoma. So this is a critical year for Brent Venables. So he's been at Oklahoma since 2022, and expectations were high for him when he left Clemson to come to Oklahoma, and it just has not panned out. And last year, Oklahoma went 6-7 in their first year in the SEC, and that's not good. In Oklahoma, they have very high expectations when it comes to football. So I think this is critical for him. You got to, again, just like with Arkansas, I think if you get to 9 or 10 wins, that might be enough to save his job. But anything below that, I got questions about that. So I got Brent Venables at number 14. I know they brought in some transfers, so maybe that will help out. We'll have to wait and see. So at number 13, I have Hugh Freeze at Auburn. So this is another one. Hugh Freeze, when he left Liberty to come back to the SEC to become the head coach at Auburn, expectations were high there. And so his record there, he's going into his third season at Auburn, 11-14, and that is not good for Auburn. They went 5-7 last year, and Auburn, I think this is their second or third losing season in a row. And I think Hugh Freeze, the pressure's on. He's got to start picking it up now. I know, again, just like with any other coach that's desperate, they'll go into the transfer portal, they'll get a quarterback or a running back or whoever. So I think Hugh Freeze, if he has another year like this, I think if he's not fired, then certainly going into 2026, I think he will be shown the door. Number 12 is Mark Stoops at Kentucky. So Mark Stoops, he's done a really good job of turning that Kentucky program around. His record there, he's been there since 2013, and his overall record is 77 and 73. But last year, Kentucky had a disastrous year. Only one conference win. They went 4-8 overall. And, it kind of makes you think, has Kentucky peaked under him? Now, I understand that Kentucky is a school that's not known for football. I understand that. So their standards for football might not be as high as, say, as your Alabamas or your Georgias or your Texas. But at some point, you got to ask yourself, is this as good as it's going to get for Kentucky under Mark Stoops? The last couple years haven't been all that great for them, and so we'll see. I know Mark Stoops. He's a very good coach. There's no denying that. I know he was linked a couple years ago to the Texas A&M job, and of course that didn't pan out. But we'll see. But I'd like to see some improvement out of Kentucky this year. But if they have another year like they did last year, Mark Stoops might be in trouble, and it might be time for a change in Lexington. So number 11, I have Billy Napier at Florida. So if you guys remember last year when I did this coaches ranking list, I had Billy Napier in red and towards the bottom of the list. And early in the season, it looked like that he was going to stay at the bottom of the list or even get off the list, if you know what I mean. But Florida really turned things around in the second half of the season. They finished the year strong at 8-5. And of course, I think a lot of that had to do with the switch at quarterback from Graham Mertz to DJ Lagway. And so now with that comes along expectations. Now, if you notice, I had Billy Napier in red last year. I moved him up to yellow. So that seat is still warm, but it's not as hot as it was last year. So we'll see if Florida, if they can build off of that momentum that they had at the end of the season last year. So I have Billy Napier at 11. So number 10, I have Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. So Missouri, another good year for them last year. They went 10-3. And so Eli Drinkwitz, his record at Missouri since 2020 is 38-24, which is not bad for Missouri. So I think Eli Drinkwitz, I think he is safe at number 10. So number 9, I have Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. Now, when a team goes 7-6 in a season, that's not a good season by most teams. But for Vanderbilt, everyone knows Vanderbilt. They've always been known as the doormat of the SEC, and what a year they had last year. They went 7-6. They won their bowl game. And so things are looking up in Nashville. I mean, who would have thought that Vanderbilt would have, they beat a lot of good teams last year. They beat Virginia Tech to start the season. They beat Alabama in that historic upset. They nearly beat Texas the following week. And there's a couple other games that they should have won. But nonetheless, what a job. What a turnaround they had last year. And, of course, a lot of that had to do, again, with quarterback play with Diego Pavia. And he is back for another year at Vandy. So we'll see. We'll see what Vandy can do. But last year, they went 3-5 in conference play, which, again, for most teams, that's not very good. But for Vanderbilt, that's pretty daggone good. So Clark Lee, I had him at the bottom last year. In red. Clearly, he's safe now after the year they had last year. All right, so number 8, I have Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. So Lane Kiffin, his record there is 44-18, and last year Ole Miss, I think they were one of the more disappointing teams in college football because you had all this talent on your team. They got guys from the transfer portal, and they had expectations last year, but they just did not live up to them. Ole Miss, a lot of people thought, myself included, that Ole Miss could contend in the SEC and contend in the college football playoff. But last year was a disappointment for Ole Miss. They went 10-3. Now 10-3 is a good record, but when you have expectations, that's, when you have playoff aspirations and all that, that's not very good. Well, you guys get what I mean. But, and the reason why I have Lane Kiffin in yellow, again, just like with Mark Stoops at Kentucky, is this as good as Ole Miss will be under Lane Kiffin? Have they peaked? Was last year the peak for them? We'll have to wait and see. And I do have Lane Kiffin in yellow for that reason. So number 7, I have Shane Beamer at South Carolina. So South Carolina, they went 9-4 last year. Just barely lost their bowl game to Illinois. And so Shane Beamer's record at Carolina is 29-22. And so, and just like with Ole Miss last year, South Carolina this year has expectations to contend in the SEC, to contend for the college football playoff. And had it not been for a couple of games that South Carolina lost last year, South Carolina could have easily snuck into the playoffs. They had that big win over Clemson late in the year, and they had a couple other big wins. So we'll see. Can South Carolina make that step forward next year? We'll have to wait and see how things turn out. Number 6, I have Brian Kelly at LSU. So Brian Kelly, he's been at LSU since 2022. And his record at LSU is 29-11. But last year their record was 9-4. And if you're LSU has much higher expectations than that. And so, LSU has not made the playoffs. And so I think at the very least they need to make the playoffs this year because, even an 8-win season or a 9-win season will get you fired down there in Baton Rouge. You need to win at least 10 games. You need to be contending for the playoffs. You need to be contending for the SEC, and that's just something Brian Kelly has not done. And, when he was at Notre Dame, yeah, he won a lot, but he didn't play a lot of good competition. And then when he did play in a bowl game, or a few years ago when they played Alabama in the national championship game, they got their butts kicked. And that's basically how it is with Brian Kelly as a coach, period. So LSU needs to take that step forward. And I think you need to win at least 10 games if you want your job to be saved. So number 5, I have Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. So he took over for the legendary Nick Saban after Nick Saban retired. Obviously, it's a big difference in style of play, the culture, and all that kind of stuff. Alabama went 9-4 last year. They got off to a bit of a sluggish start. They had that big game against Georgia where it went back and forth, where Alabama came out victorious, and but of course they had some embarrassing losses last year too. They had losses to Oklahoma, losses to Vanderbilt, losses to Tennessee, and so I think Kalen DeBoer is okay now, seeing how last year was his first year, but another 9-4 season at Alabama is not going to cut it. And so, if they do this again this year or worse, then I think that seat's going to heat up down there in Tuscaloosa. So number 4 on my list is Mike Elko at Texas A&M. So last year was his first year at A&M. Went 8-5, which is really good considering how A&M had been the last several years. And so now can he keep it going? Mike Elko, he's known as the turnaround guy, the guy who can turn programs around. You saw what he done at Duke, and looks like he's doing okay so far at Texas A&M. And so we'll see how things turn out this year for A&M. If they can take that next step forward, that would be fantastic. So I have Mike Elko at number 4. Number 3, I have Josh Heupel at Tennessee. So Tennessee, another good year last year. They went 10-3, and Josh Heupel's record is 37-15, which is really good. They've had some big wins, but just like with other coaches on that list, Tennessee, they need to start contending for a national championship. I know that they made the college football playoff last year, where they got bounced out of the first round, but still, I'd like to see them, go further in the playoffs. Now, of course, Tennessee, they've been the subject, a lot of talk this offseason, about them with the whole Nico Iamaleava situation, which you guys saw. I did a video on that. And so we'll see what Tennessee can do this year. But I have Josh Heupel at number 3. Number 2, I have Steve Sarkisian at Texas. And so first year in the SEC, obviously very good. They were the regular season champions, so to speak, in the SEC in their first year, where they did lose to Georgia in the SEC title game, but still made the playoffs. Made a pretty good run. I'll never forget that game versus Arizona State. That was a doozy. And so I think Steve Sarkisian, obviously, he's got that program going in the right direction. And so we'll see if they can make that next step. Of course, a lot of expectations for Texas this year with Arch Manning coming on board, being the starter. So we'll see how things turn out for them. And, of course, number 1, no surprise, it's Kirby Smart. So another SEC championship last year, another playoff appearance, 2 national titles back-to-back. And so, why shouldn't Kirby be number 1? So easy decision. 105-19 is his record there. So, we'll see if Georgia, if they can do it again this year. All right, so that is my coaching hot seat rankings for the SEC for 2025. Leave it down below. Which coaches do you think, or which ones do you think are on the hot seat? Which ones do you think are overrated on this list, underrated? Let me know down below in the comments section. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.